Welcome back into another Husky Talk. Today we're joined with Eric Yavarone, a UConn baseball team, played with the Huskies from 2012 to 2015. Yav, hey, thanks for joining us, man, out in Arizona. Just kind of take me through what you've been doing here to pass the time here during coronavirus.
Yeah, man. What's up, Jones? Thanks for having me. It's been all right. It's been as good as it could be. You know, obviously we'd rather be playing, but there's still stuff to get done. So it's been an interesting situation, because it's a little bit different in the off season, right? Like we can potentially come back in any moment. So it's been a lot of checking in with the guys, like making sure they have programs, making sure, depending on what their situation is, some guys have gyms, some guys don't. What equipment do they have? What can we put together for them based off of that equipment, and checking in on them to make sure everything's going well. So it's been a lot of communication with the guys, a lot of online work, and then trying to get a lot of scouting reports too done with the draft coming up too. So there's been a lot of work to be done despite the situation, but yeah, it's been pretty good. And outside of that, like I was just telling you before we got on, like girlfriend and I expecting a baby here in October, so pregnant. So we've been spending a lot of time together, which, like I said, we wish we were playing, but it's a good time to be around her, during that time. So it's going as good as it can, man.
Yeah, hey, talk a little bit about your role. You are going to be, once you guys play opening day at some point, whether this year or next year, you will be the next Husky in the majors. Obviously a little bit different, not as a player, but still it's all the same. And you're going to be on a loaded Dodgers team too. So kind of take us through your role. What's your day-to-day when you're doing normal stuff? We're not like this kind of quarantine.
Yeah, man. So it's kind of like there's two pieces to it. The first one being like the strength coach position. The second part being some of the stuff with amateur scouting, like when I came and saw you guys last winter. So the role day to day when we're in season is to be a strength coach. So be with the team, go on the road, all that sort of stuff. And, lead lifts, lead stretch, write programs, things of that nature. Just kind of with the guys day to day. And then the secondary piece of it with the scouting, it's, getting ready for the draft, and we kind of handle the athleticism reports for a lot of amateur prospects. So kind of like the fall, winter, visiting schools, meeting other strength coaches, talking with them about like their experiences with certain players that, we've identified, and kind of like putting those things together to kind of get a feel for what type of athlete they are, how they kind of look into different things that we kind of think are important, how we assess our guys. So, and then from there, after the draft happens, just making sure we're communicating with, when they get to Arizona, with the strength coaches there to onboard them and kind of see that process through a little bit. So it's twofold. It's indoctrinating, learning about amateur players, indoctrinating them to our program, and then in season, like strength coach, normal, strength coach responsibilities with the team.
So kind of take me through the journey of this. After you graduate UConn, obviously, I remember you being an exercise science major. So this is obviously something that you're leaning towards. How did this kind of progress out after you graduated, the progression to obviously getting all the way up to the big leagues with the Dodgers?
Yeah, for sure. So graduated in 15, tried to keep playing, didn't want to go out the way I did, but it's the way it worked out. So it was kind of like after that summer where I was like, all right, I think playing's done, like have an opportunity to stay in the game, just in a different role that I'm passionate about. So let's start doing that. So I did an internship at Cressy Performance, a gym that have two facilities. One's in Massachusetts, one's in Florida. I was at the Massachusetts facility. I did that in the fall after graduation, and then spent a little bit of time too at a gym back home called Ranfone Training Systems. This guy right here. Two awesome facilities, man. But more in the private sector. But it was like, okay, I think pro ball might be something I want to at least try. So then I joined the Dodgers that spring. So spring of 16. And I was with the AZL team, kind of like assisted in rehab in like a part-time internship role. And then things just kind of progressed from there. I definitely didn't intend to be involved in scouting or assessing that sort of stuff. But it just kind of happened. Literally I got a phone call. I was in high A with our team in Rancho Cucamonga, California. And the boss called and said, hey, this is something that we've been kind of doing a little bit, but we kind of want to take this idea to the next level and actually put somebody in position to look at amateur players and write athleticism reports and kind of do that whole thing on the next level. And, kind of just, it happened. So that started last year, and then going into this season was super fortunate enough to kind of get the promotion on the strength training side of things to be with the team. So prior to that, I was stationed in AZ doing the scouting stuff, and then I would be at the complex working with rehab guys, just helping out our strength coaches there with the normal population of players, the younger guys that were there training, getting ready for a short season, whatever the case may be, shipped out to an affiliate. And that was kind of the day-to-day role. So now the scouting piece kind of stays the same, but now, like we were talking about earlier, I'll be with the big league team. So it's been a pretty quick and awesome progression, man. Super lucky.
Yeah, I got to think this is an awesome time for you too, just because a lot of comparisons of the Dodgers organizations of the Yankees and the Braves of the 90s, kind of the major league team is stacked, but they have so much talent in the minor leagues too that they can kind of funnel up once those guys leave, whether free agency or trade or whatnot. What has it been like working with those younger guys and now starting to see those guys kind of break through onto the major league roster?
This has been the coolest part, no question about it. So this is, I would say last year was kind of like when that started happening. So my first year in Arizona, so what was it, 16, that draft class was like really, really good. So you had Gavin Lux, you had Tony Gonsolin, Dustin May, like those were all the guys that my first experience in pro ball. And it was like literally right after I started because I didn't do spring training. I came for extended. So I was there for maybe 2 months, and then the draft happens. That was when, a little bit more comfortable with the environment, knew the ropes a little bit, and got to do like all the assessments and started programming and like really started becoming a strength coach versus, kind of like the intern learn the ropes. And it was with those guys. So got to spend the beginning of their careers with them, and then had a lot of them again in Rancho. And now to see them break through and help the big league team, like that's been the coolest part because, we kind of, in a way, did it together, but it's been really cool to see those guys like, A, make it, B, like make an impact, like be a part of the plans going forward. So like it's really cool, man. Really cool part of the job.
Hey, let's go all the way back. Let's go to the recruiting process. What was that like for you? And ultimately, why did you choose to be a Husky?
Oh, man. All right, let's see. So I guess when I was getting recruited by UConn, that was when Coach Blood was still there, right?
Yeah, yep.
So he left to go to Hartford right before him and Coach Mal, right before we all actually showed up.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, if you want to get really crazy, I remember Coach Penders and Coach Blood coming to our AAU facility in Hamden, Connecticut when I was young. Like I was like 12, 13 years old maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And, like you're a little kid, you think you're pretty good. You're like, oh, I'm going to play at like North Carolina. Like, you know what I mean? But like they came in and they were really cool. And I was like, man, UConn is like, they got some cool coaches there. That'd be a cool place to play. So if you want to get really crazy, I guess you could say it started there in terms of like UConn's got a good program and they got some good guys over there. So, but the recruiting process actually started, I think it was my sophomore year of high school. Like went to a basketball game and kind of met the coaches, stuff like that. But I think I still had like the dream of going to play, down south, whatever. So my junior year, summer, I played for a team, the East Cobb team out in Georgia, lived out there for the summer. Talked to a couple schools back home, but it really wasn't like anything crazy. There was just a handful of schools, but I think like the whole time UConn made the most sense. They were doing incredible things at the time with the guys they had, and there was an opportunity, it looked like, to be able to play a good amount right out of the chute, be able to do it like, in the backyard, represent the home state, family could see you often, that whole thing. So, I mean, it was like a roundabout way of like kind of deciding what I kind of knew the whole time made the most sense. I decided to stay home and be a Husky and go to UConn.
Yeah, that freshman year, you contributed big time. You hitting over 270, and you played in the majority of the games. Take me through that funny story about your first hit. I think it was Indiana down in Florida, double the left center field. Was there anything that was up with that bat that you found out later on, or is that just a myth?
That was the best day and worst day of my life, man. I'm just kidding. So, yeah, we got the Marucci bats. I don't know what it was, but Nike said their bats weren't good enough, so we got to use whatever. And, man, that white Marucci bat, it was just that it was awesome. It was balanced. It was light. It had some ping to it. It was awesome. So first game happens, swinging it pretty good, feeling good, and then literally first AB hit a double. I got a hold of it pretty good, and then after the game they banned the bat that it was unable to. So I had to switch to black Marucci, and that pretty much wrecked my career. So
Oh man, yeah. I look back. You were that was your only. You were 1 for 1 that game with 3 walks. This is quite a debut.
beach ball, man.
And you started your career with an 8-game hit streak. Just take me through what it was like that freshman year. You know, kind of adjusting to the college life. You know, getting to know all these new guys and playing at. You know, at the time, you know, they had a couple good seasons, 2010, 2011, starting to build that brand, but becoming one of the best, you know, teams in the Northeast and one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, it was exciting for sure. I definitely think, like, you know, freshman year, maybe a little bit like naive to the situation, you know, like because there was like a lot of pressure coming off the last couple seasons they had, but I was just trying to like do a good job, you know. But freshman year was smooth, man. Like I just remember, you know, that summer session where it all starts, where you're with other freshmen. Like we all got along really well, so that was smooth. Like we had our group of guys, and then when the older guys started coming back, you know, it was like it wasn't like you're by yourself now. It's your little group getting to know all the older guys. But they were all like super cool, man. They were all very welcoming. Maybe I was naive to it. Maybe they just did a really good job of not like making there be additional pressure. Like, hey, this is what we did last year, so you guys got to step up. But I just remember guys like teaching us how it was done, like how to be a part of the group. And that started in the summer too. Like I remember, you know, some of the guys that came early, like work out with us and kind of teach us things like that and show leadership qualities. And I think everybody around they made it pretty smooth. Like I don't really feel like it was extremely difficult or like a huge adjustment, you know what I mean? And then on the personal side, I was away from home, but it wasn't very far, so I can go home like whenever it was needed. It was a very nice situation. So it was good, man. It was good. And then, like I said, we got off to a pretty good start there and got to play, and it was cool.
Sophomore year was the fun year. Maybe not towards the later end of the regular season, but at the beginning, you guys were hot. You're winning series against Sam Houston State, some big wins early on. And then, of course, we're all going to remember the postseason run. Just kind of talk about what that sophomore year kind of meant to you, and when you look back at it, what were some of the things that kind of jump out?
Yeah, that was the highlight one. I mean, no doubt. You know, thinking about it, writing down some games here, like some years where I don't really have anything, but they're all seem to be in that sophomore year. It was special, man. Like it was kind of a roller coaster in a way, because like I remember like that first game where we took the field, and like, man, we were feeling ourselves. Like I just remember running out to the field with all the boys, and it was like, we are really good, and we're going to be really, really good. And we kind of came out of the gates that way, and then it got a little, you know, dried out in the middle, and then we kind of had that down slope where it's like, oh shoot, man, like we're a big old ball of wasted talent here. And then we showed what I think we were capable of doing the whole time. So I do remember that. I remember that like distinctly, taking infield, outfield. I remember watching Purdue take Io that day, and I'm like, this guy's got no shot. And then we lost. But yeah, man, I remember just like everybody feeling themselves, and that we thought we were good. And we played that way. And I think whenever we had that feeling, and that was universal through the whole group, that is when we did what we were capable of doing. And I think it happened in the beginning of the year, and it happened late in the year. So that was kind of like the overview of things I remember. But yeah, what do you want to do? You want to talk about any of
I mean, I know you've put down some of your top games, and a lot of them are from that season. So let me specifically ask you, one of the craziest games that I'll always remember that got that run going was obviously playing Louisville, that first game of Big East tournament. Take me through that 12th inning at bat. You're leading off the inning. There's no Coach Penders in the dugout. He's been tossed. And you get that going against Birdie.
Yeah. Well, he throws 100, so I wasn't going to hit him. So I was like, all right, so what do we do here? I just remember going up. I remember like Coach Horgan, like, you know, just having us have the eye for defensive positioning and stuff like that. So like always was aware of where the third baseman would kind of play, where the second baseman would play. And then like just that push punt like became a very, you know, it was a good move if the position, you know, if it was the right situation. I think I was leading off, and I just remember Horgan and I were out on deck, and I don't know if it was whose idea it was, but we discussed like, hey, if that second baseman's back, like give it a push. And he was. So I just said, screw it. And it worked out really well. It was a fastball. I think it was the first pitch. It was up and away. Like it was literally the perfect pitch to push bunt, and got it out there with some good steam to get it past Birdie. And, but the second baseman had to come in. pretty hard and didn't really have a play. So that was the move, and got on first base. And then I think Stanley bunted me over, and then Bill gets the knock, like in very fitting fashion.
Yeah.
And that's how we scored the run. And then Pat shut it down the next inning. So it was that was on the list. That's one of the best games for sure.
For sure. What's going through your mind when Billy? Obviously, one of the iconic photos that I love is when they get you at home plate, all fired up with Johnny kind of right next to her. I think it was Johnny or LJ that was standing there at home plate. Just what was going through your mind as you're rounding third and like, wow, we're taking the lead against this team in the extra innings?
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. I think I was kind of like reserved, I guess, like try not to be too high or too low.
Yeah, that's why it's so surprising when you're all fired.
I scored that run, that was it. Like, you know what I mean? I just sent it. There was times where I'm sure like that type of emotion wanted to come out, but like try to keep it level. But that was just like, yeah, we're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, and just let it all out. Didn't care. Scored the run. It was great. So I think, here's the thing. Like I remember earlier in that game, at some point, somebody got thrown out at home plate. Adam Engel host somebody.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know who it was, but good call. Yeah.
And that would have been, I think we would have took the lead or something then too. So like, I definitely was like, trying to get on my horse, good angle, like making sure I actually scored because that guy hosted somebody out a couple innings prior. So I don't think necessarily like I knew I was going to score until I actually scored. Mm-hmm. So partially probably why a lot of excitement came out, but it was just like, I don't know, it was at that moment that it was, I don't know, we were going to win, So it was definitely a special moment for sure.
What game in that tournament is the moment where you're like, all right, we're going to win this thing?
That one, no doubt.
That one.
I think like, we talk a lot about like the weekend before with William and Mary being like, where we kind of like put it together. Right. And I agree. Like, I'm not saying I don't agree with that. Like, but like we still like didn't go down there and crush them like 3 games. Like I think we won the first 2, like didn't really, I think there was still some struggle within the wins to win them. And then we lost Sunday. So I don't think it was like a huge, we're riding the wave momentum, we're back, we're firing on all cylinders. I think it was more like, we played a little bit better. And then that week of practice, like it was more like, that's when we got the whole idea of what do we got to lose type attitude going into it. And I think we started buying into it a little bit more. And I think we still had that edge in us somewhere to know like, we can do this. But I think as that Louisville game progressed, because we lost 4 weekends in a row and we played them. Mm-hmm. But I also think like we also had a history of beating Louisville in the tournament too, the year prior. So I think that in that game, as it was close, like as Carson started doing his thing, like as things started to unfold, it was like, all right, like we're in this. And then once we won that game, it was just like, I don't really suspect it. I don't think anybody thought we were going to lose. Even in the next game when we were down, like it was like, all right, come on. There's no way you beat Louisville in the first game as the AC to lose the next day. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like just that whole energy. So we come back, we win that game. Even Rutgers is like a 2-1 game, but it didn't feel like a nail biter. Like JT was shutting him down. It was like, yeah, we're going to win. Like you just knew it. And then the ND game for sure. That was like, that one was cool because it was just like, all right, here you go. Like
you just knew Mars was going to go out there after that USF game and just
show. Yeah, it was just one of those things, like, I don't know if you believe in, like, the baseball gods, whatever, like, but all those things just happened. Like, Marzi shutting it down, LJ hitting a home run, like, he'd been the guy all year. It's just everything that would have been supposed to be fitting if a team was going to do it, we did like we did. So I think it was a great run.
What other games you got on that list?
I got the Virginia Tech game, the first one, because now, like, compared to the other one where, like, William and Mary, like, yeah, we played pretty good, but I wouldn't necessarily say, like, there was a ton of momentum that we knew we were going to roll the tournament. It kind of unfolded in that first game, and then it happened. I do think we took the momentum there and brought it right over to Virginia Tech. Like, we were feeling ourselves. We had the swagger going. We knew that maybe that same feeling I was talking about in the beginning of the year, like, that was back. And to win the first game, like, at their place, that was unbelievable. So that was definitely a highlight. Maybe,
what do you
like,
remember from that game? What are some of the – because obviously the packed house, they're one of the top offenses in the ACC. Like, what are some of the moments that, like, jump in your mind from that game?
Carson striking out the catcher.
Yep.
There was guys on, I don't remember exactly, like, what point, but, like, going back to that other idea, like, that's probably a situation where, like, you know, like the home team, like 1 seed, big moment, like maybe is that where this little team from New England caves and they do what they're supposed to do and win the game, and then Carson, like, I think he might have threw a changeup, like low changeup, something like that. Maybe not. But anyway, he K's him, and it was just like the place went quiet. And like when that happened, it was like, all right, like, nope, we got it. I think at that moment, I really don't remember. I remember scoring early. You know what I mean? Set the tone. I think that's important too, to like break the ice that like, nope, we're going to get it going right from the beginning. I think Vinny had a hit. Somebody had a couple hits.
I remember Tommy, I think, like led off the game with a hit, and it's like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, boom. Set the tone. Tommy knocked up the middle, like barreled it up too. I think it was up the middle. Yeah. I thought Vinny got hit. But anyway, we score in the first inning, and then Carson comes out, sets the tone. Like, I remember that. I remember him striking out that guy. I don't really remember much about how he scored the other runs. There was another moment.
I don't remember how he scored any of the runs. I'd have to look back, but I remember Johnny just running after balls all day. Like the ball was hit to right field, and he was going after.
Right, he's catching everything. So yeah, I would say those two moments and like little stuff like that. You know, those are definitely the highlights of what I remember from that game.
All right, what else you got?
I actually wrote down the Oklahoma game, man, and I know that
it was a great, even though it was a loss, it was a great game.
Yeah, like I think it's kind of strange to think about like one of the most memorable games being a loss, but like, you know, like people talk about, oh, you know, if you're going to lose, like leave it all out there, and you know, you just got beat by the other team, and like a lot of times it's not true. Like I think that actually legitimately that's what happened. Like we left it all out there. Like Jordan pitched unbelievably. Like I remember just so many moments, like LJ jumping up, snagging one, like to keep it going. It was just like a really good game, and I'm sure like we did something wrong in there. I'm sure we gave up a free 90, coach. But I just think like we truly left it all out there, and even though it was a loss and that's not what we wanted, like even in the loss, it's just like you just felt everybody like feel for each other, you know, like man, like we just left it all out there and we lost. Yeah. So like it's not necessarily a great moment that we lost, because if we win that game, like we probably win the regional, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know, just like from a memory standpoint, relationship standpoint, like, you know what I mean? It was unfortunate, but it was a game where we left it all out there. We put our hearts into it. It didn't work out, but like, you know, we were there for each other, pick each other up. So I think it was an emotional memory, you know, of a great game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember obviously Dylan Overton, I think he's been called up by the A's at some point, or he's been in the big leagues. He was Oklahoma's starter. Yep. I remember first inning, LJ hits a bullet. Their left fielder somehow runs it down. That would have been 2 runs that could have had. And Pat Butler comes in. It must have been extra innings, so Jordan went 9. So Pat Butler comes in, bases loaded, 1 out. First pitch he throws, get a double play to get out of the jam. So those are like the moments I remember. I remember LJ had a chance to win it in extras. It was like the one time all year he like lined out to someone, he didn't come through, but that was few and far between that year for LJ. He was our MVP. But those are some of the moments, and I agree with you. If we win that game, I talked to Carson about this on our Zoom call. If we win that game like 2-0, no matter if we face Oklahoma again or Virginia Tech, I think with Mars on the hill, we probably win that game. So that's pretty special. What else you got on there?
I mean, that was it for sophomore year there. Junior year, I didn't really have anything. You know, I mean, maybe selfishly, like I broke my wrist during the season.
Yeah. Yep.
That I couldn't play the rest of the year. I couldn't play summer ball like that. I would still probably trade it to be able to play and, you know, be with the boys and everything like that. But like at the end of the day, me breaking my wrist, like it led to an internship that summer, which led to the other internship at Cressy. So like present day Eric, like looking back, you can relate everything directly to breaking my wrist. So maybe that game in a weird way, like if you want to spin something negative into a positive, like breaking my wrist was a highlight of the season. But senior year, I got a couple. I got 2 games against Tulane. One in the regular season and then the other one in the postseason. So the regular season one, I didn't even participate. I was just a big cheerleader. But, man, that was an incredible game. So the one where Blake hits the homer that they call a double.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, Duff, like, just comes up out of nowhere and hits a homer to tie it. And, like, then we win. I just remember that home run. And that was another situation where just said screw it and let the emotion out. And remember, like, pretty much being in the first base coaching box, yelling inappropriate things to the umpire.
Didn't someone get tossed from the dugout?
I don't remember. I
Waving
wouldn't be
a towel or
surprised.
something. I feel like, I don't know, a young Trevor Holmes or something got like
Oh
booed.
yeah. He was trying to like pick out who yelled or something like that. I think did we just say it was Holmes? Just like, hey, it was Holmes. Get out of here.
Yeah, I think it was like someone more important that was actually in the game. We're like, oh, hey, it's Holmes. Like he's already
Yeah.
missed or something. Like,
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I do remember that. But that was just. I mean, you talk about sick games. Like that was a sick game.
the
And then
tournament
the other
game
one.
was next level.
Yeah, unbelievable. And then the other one, just the tournament game. Like got an opportunity to play in that one. Like we came back, we
You guys
won.
got it going, you and Johnny.
Yeah, that was kind of like the special part, right? Like I don't know how they gave me a hit for what actually happened out there, but get a hit somehow, and then Johnny does his thing, and then we end up winning the Duffett. Did Duffett home run in that game too?
Yeah,
That's
the
how we
go
won.
ahead.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, just another great game, and like got involved in that one, and then like you said, it was kind of like it was special for John and I, to kind of have a role in that together, and then just a great game. So those were two that I wrote down for senior year.
Did you have any freshmen you wrote down?
I'm
trying to remember.
I wrote a couple down, like the Louisville game of the tournament.
Yeah.
That was a really good game.
Yeah.
I remember like the Oregon State game being really cool.
Yeah.
Great game, right? Like we went at their place.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that was a chirpy game too, right? Dugout was pretty chirpy in that one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There was some good juice going in that one. But we beat them at their place. That was a good one. And then I wrote down like just little things like the Indiana game, like you said, first hit, that's special.
Yeah.
The first home run, that was special. But those two, the Oregon State Louisville game, like best games team.
What was the first dinger? Was that in Charleston?
It was at Charleston against Xavier.
Yep.
So I think it was the first game of that weekend. We played them. We played I think we played College Charleston second. So I think we beat Xavier. We lost to Charleston. I think we beat
was it URI or Michigan? URI. Yeah.
Third game of the weekend. So yeah, man, those were the highlights I wrote down. But yeah, all centered around that. That's
hey,
all.
I want to talk. Obviously, those first 3 years you played consistently. You're hitting 270 or higher all 3 of those seasons, and then you break your hand, break your wrist that end of your junior year. Take me through that senior year, because I was so impressed with you just kind of watching. You didn't get the playing time that you were used to. You were a senior, and you just took on this leadership role and kind of mentored all those guys, even though you weren't in the lineup day in and day out. Kind of take me through that season, kind of what you learned about yourself during those trying times.
Yeah, man. I think like going back to it, like made a pretty drastic swing change in the off season. Like it went really well in the fall, going into the season. Like it didn't. I kind of like lost feel for it for sure, and things kind of we're getting a little bit out of whack. But then just put a lot of pressure on myself too. Like I really did that throughout my whole career, to be honest with you. I tried to, when I saw the boys last winter, try to like tell them, that was my message to them, like, hey man, like life after baseball is good. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. But always did play with a lot of pressure. And I think that senior year, like swing change, like expecting big results. Hey man, you've been a baseball player your whole life. Like you got to do it this year. You might not get drafted or continue to play after that year. I would say like all the pressure was like doubled. And then when things went well or didn't go well, because I was kind of like the opposite of the way I would usually start seasons, I definitely for sure hit the panic button, and it never got better. And then, lost my spot in the lineup, and then, other guys started taking it over. And there was some point in there that like, I realized like, hey man, like you're not going to be a regular anymore. Like, is it? So then at that point you got two choices really. You could either sulk and bring everybody down, or you could take the situation for what it is and make it better. And I'll be honest with you, man, like when I wasn't playing, as crazy as it sounds, like it was actually, it was kind of fun.
Weight was off?
Weight was off, and it was kind of, I accepted what happened. Like it happened the way it happened. If I do get to play again, I'll be ready. I'm not going to stop working. Like I'll try to get my swing right. So if I do get to play again, like, I could help. But like it just, it worked out the way it was going to work out. So like I said, I had two choices. You're either going to bring everybody down, or you're going to make it better. So took the weight off and just said, all right, like let's be a good teammate and try to enjoy it and help the guys out in any way I could. And it was actually like a relatively enjoyable position. You would obviously rather be playing, but just being able to help out and be there for the guys and contribute in other ways, like it was kind of fun. Probably like why I'm in a coaching role now in a way, you know what I mean? So like it was just it was an interesting year for sure. But yeah, like I said, it went from like a ton of pressure, a ton of panic, like to, hey man, like it's the way it is. It's all right. So what are you gonna do about it? You're gonna make a good situation out of it, or you're going to make a bad situation out of it and try to make a good situation out of it.
Hey, so now you are in a coaching role. What have you learned from some of your previous coaches, like Coach Penders, Coach Horgan, Coach Mack? And it's unbelievable to see that all 4 of those coaches you guys came in with are all still at the program, the longest tenured staff in the nation.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I learned a lot, man. I will say this. I put to practice more things now than I did then. You know what I mean? Like,
that's what most guys do. It's kind of after they leave, they're like, oh, yep, that makes sense now.
For sure. Like, there's a lot of things that stuck that at the time I didn't do much about, but now I do more of. But I think, like, all those experiences playing, like, you learn from them, and now you put them to practice in your next career, right? So, I mean, there's certain things. Like, I remember Coach would always say, like, if you don't see something you agree with and you don't say anything, you accept it. That's something that I wouldn't necessarily speak up a ton or call people out, but now, like, getting more comfortable having uncomfortable conversations and knowing that you need to have those. And if you don't agree with something, speak up and talk about it, because that's how relationships grow and situations get better. Like, things like that stuck, that I was like, all right, whatever, and now, like, you apply them much more in this. So I think a ton of experiences from the coaching staff, from how my career went playing at UConn, like learning the good pieces of what those experiences teach you, and then applying them to my career now, has been something that has went really well. So I do think, like, there have been a lot of experiences from UConn that are directly, like, affecting the way, like, I coach and communicate with the guys and other staff members and stuff like that.
All right, we're gonna go into some fan questions. You ready for these?
Oh, people responded.
Yeah, people responded, man. One of them is how often do you keep in touch with the UConn teammates, and how often do you follow the current team?
I always say, like, I need to do a better job of keeping in touch with people. I think as we start our careers and things get crazy, like, it's easy, you blink and, like, years have went by. But I talk to the guys that are out here definitely frequently. Like, every spring training, we make a point to get together. Max being with the Brewers, Pat being with the Giants, now Carson being with the Brewers in a coaching role. Like, we get a little UConn night together. We go get food. We hang out. This year was cool. We got to do it at the game.
Yeah.
When you guys were out here, so got to see a couple more guys. Some that I didn't necessarily play with, but, like, all part of the crew. So I would say, like, the guys in pro ball that have saw Oberg for the first time in a while, that was cool. The guys that are out here for baseball reasons, like, make a point to see them. And then, we'll talk to the other guys too occasionally. Definitely want to do a better job. But, like, the guys that I hung out with a lot, Connor, talked to him a decent amount. John, talked to him. Slade, we all got to be together at Slade's wedding. So that was pretty cool, going back and seeing the boys and having a good night with them. So a decent amount, but I think, definitely something to make a point of staying in better communication with everybody, see how everybody's doing. But have talked to a good amount of them. And then what was the second part?
Second part was, let me see here. How often do you keep tabs on the current team when they're playing?
Oh, a good amount. Like, knew that you guys were coming out to AZ, so I had to make sure I got over there and saw you guys. Last year, following them with the draft stuff after coming to see you guys in the winter. So definitely, tried to make sure, in the loop and see how the boys are doing. I will say it's pretty cool, man. Like, there's Facebook groups, like UConn alumni, like, everybody does a good job, like, keeping that, UConn family alive and stuff like that, and keeping track on the team and then with one another as well.
It is such a family. What is it like to have all these guys in the majors and minor leagues that are UConn, that are Hook C? Especially just kind of going out there to Arizona and seeing all you guys post game. It's like, man, we have just as many guys outside the dugout as Vanderbilt did on the other side.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I think it's real, man. I think it still, like, flies under the radar how many guys in pro ball are UConn people, but they're all over the place. It's pretty cool. It's just like I guess you could say it, I don't know, it embodies the program a little bit, right? Like, we play UConn, like, play well, perform well, and, like, it gets noticed and guys get drafted and they're in pro ball. But when they're in pro ball, they do pretty well. Like, I don't think there's many UConn guys that, like, I don't know, like, play a season or whatever and then get released. Like, it seems like they all make an impact and like give it a really good run to make it to the big leagues and then have an impact when they're up there. So I do think it's a testament of like not only just being a good program that gets recognized, but like the style of play and like the way the program is, like it puts them in, a position to be successful when they get in pro ball and they're kind of on their own. Like they can navigate the system and perform well. So it's pretty cool to see.
Hey, does anything change for you now that the draft's going to be shortened?
A little bit. So, a lot of the time, is spent with, I guess you could say higher profile prospects, just because like those are the guys that we want to get a lot of information on. So those are kind of like the checklist set list, and then it kind of dips down from there. So like the in-depth reports, like doing the most digging, will probably be on guys that will go in those top 5, 10 rounds, whatever it ends up being. So that won't change a ton. But with that being said, over the course of the year, as we, say for example, I come visit UConn and Anthony K's the guy, but there's going to be a lot of other guys drafted too. While I'm there, I'll still ask about the other guys, and if and when the opportunity comes up to kind of speak on them, we'll have that information. So I guess it will be kind of the same, but like, the additional pieces, because there's less rounds. So the guys that would go later necessarily don't have to be, I don't know, I'll still be prepared for them, but it changes a little bit, but not a ton is what I'm trying to say.
All right. A fan question from J-Mac. Who was your favorite umpire? Is this an inside joke?
Oh, what was his name? I know exactly what this is. This is an incredible. What was
it
his name?
Harry?
Harry, yes.
Harry
Harry, my favorite umpire ever. I remember we were playing Seton Hall, and what the situation was, it was chirping, letting them have it, and somebody hits a ground ball, and on our team, somebody hits a ground ball, gets thrown out first. And instead of looping, right to go back to the dugout, he loops left and goes around Harry. And he just looks in the dugout and goes, "I ain't messing with these kids, man." And he didn't say messing. He said a curse word. But I think J-Mac and I were I don't know if we were standing next to each other or something, but somehow that became a little something that was our joke. And just like throughout the, that season, the rest of it, I think I'll still text him once in a while and just say it. Just like, yeah, ain't messing with these kids, man. So Harry, without a doubt, my favorite umpire of all time.
Awesome. All right, I think this is going to be the last one. I'm going to preface it. So obviously we both went to school together, and at some point I made my way out to Knollwood to your apartment and found out you are a huge shoe guy. All right. What's the latest shoe that you've gotten?
I bought a pair of Jordans last week. But I will say, you saying that, like bringing up shoes from a long time ago and then me saying I bought a pair last week, it makes it seem like I've been doing the same thing from now to then. I've definitely calmed it down for sure. I would say when I was in college, it was like any pair of like retro Jordans that came out, I wanted them. Yeah. Now it's more like selective, because I realized that half the pairs I bought, I wore them like 2 times and that's it. So it's been much more selective. It's more of like, the classic pairs of Jordans that came out. So a pair of Jordan 5s came out last week. They were like the first ones ever that, Jordan wore a lot or whatever. So I pulled the trigger on them. But yeah, it's calmed down a little. It's still there. I just, I think I've gotten a little smarter with my finances as I've grown up. And the fact that I was spending money on shoes then makes no sense at all, because now I actually have a job and I'm like, I got to save up. I can't be buying all these shoes. Where back then I was cutting hair, like just keeping money, you know what I mean? Like I didn't have any money, but I was spending it all on shoes. But yeah, so I bought a pair last week, and that's probably the first pair in a while. But yeah, I still got the collection.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sure you're going to be saving a ton of money with that little guy coming.
Yeah, no chance, right? I tell you what, though, he'll be getting Jordans.
Oh, for sure. Those might be his first ones he gets.
Little guys, yep. And then, yeah, maybe he could have, if he grows some big feet when he grows up, he could have all the other ones too.
Awesome. Yeah, Abby, hey, great catching up with you, man. I'm glad you're able to take some time. Hey, stay safe out there. We're so excited for you with the young guy coming in October. I'm sure we'll be in touch, all right, man?
All right, Jones. Thank you, brother. Good catching up with you as well. Take care.